Hello and welcome to another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. I am your backup host, Cesar Hernandez. As we've talked about before, Naive is obviously, not Naive. Wiso is obviously, I'm already messing up. We're only like a minute into this. Wiso is obviously Carlos Kameni, and I'm Guillermo Ochoa. So this is a Copa del Rey podcast that we're going to have tonight. So with us tonight, we have Tom Marshall from ESPN FC. We have Naive Moran from De Lejitos blog and Prost America. And we also have Jason Marquites from Soccer Mexicana. So let's just get straight into it, guys. Here, I'll be listing, as we've all heard today, the 12 Europeos that were given the call up from Piojo earlier today. So here's a quick list that we have. We have Chicharito, we have Giovanni Dos Santos, we have Raúl Jiménez, we have Andres Guardado, we have Jonathan Dos Santos, Hector Herrera, Tecatito, Miguel Layún, Hector Moreno, Rafa Marquez, Diego Reyes, and Guillermo Ochoa. So I'm going to go over to Naib. So since I messed up, and I'm just going to go straight back to you, I said your name. Naib, first reaction. What were your thoughts on the call-up list that Piojo chose?
I think right away the fact that Rafa Marquez is going to make the trip, after some games without being in part of the national team, and also considering that these friendlies are important because after this, Piojo won't have the whole team until the Copa America and the Gold Cup. The importance of the Gold Cup is going to be obvious in the next months, and I think this particular cup will be important, to make up what could be the starting 11. I think in the Gold Cup there will be more experiments for the Copa America. I think in the game in April against the U.S. And Javier Aquino is not on this call up as well. And Aquino has been playing, but as noted before in past weeks, he hasn't been able to claim a starting role in Rayo Vallecano. And by the looks of it, he's not a player that Piojo particularly likes, I think. Aquino went to the World Cup because Luis Montes was injured and couldn't go. And in his place, Brizuela got the call up for the World Cup originally as a right winger. And now you have Jurgen Damm, who's ascending in the last months as well. So, those were the two things that got my attention. Rafa Marquez is back, and Javier Aquino is left out of this list.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that Aquino was left out as well, but I wouldn't say that was a surprise just because the amount of minutes that he has been getting in Rayo and the fact that he was a last-minute player added in the last World Cup roster. Jason, what were your quick thoughts? What were your initial thoughts on the Europeos that were called up? Nope. Do we have Jason? No? I guess he's not there. All right, we're just going to Tom then. Tom, you're our new Jason.
Cheers, Cesar. No, first reactions, I think, obviously Aquino not there. I think that just the amount of 12 called up, you can make a full team out of the players that are chosen. Like, the other thing I think is that I don't want to start you off on a negative note, but you've got players there like Chicharito, Raúl Jiménez, Diego Reyes, and Memo Ochoa. All of them haven't been playing very much. In some cases, Ochoa and Reyes, hardly, literally nothing at all. You know what I mean? So I think that I don't know. I think it shows a bit of maybe a bit of lack of depth in the squad. I don't know if you guys agree, but I don't know. I just think that those kinds of players not playing in La Liga wouldn't be called up for, say, Brazil or Argentina or Germany, the top nation. I think, it's not Miguel Herrera's fault, but in an ideal world, maybe you wouldn't be seeing Raúl Jiménez there.
Yeah, and I think speaking about the depth, I wrote down all of the potential positions these players are putting in, and speaking about depth, I look at some place like the right wing back position, and I see that there isn't a single Europeo there that could potentially play. I know you've brought up before in the past that Jonathan Dos Santos could potentially play there. There isn't a single Europeo there. And also, as you mentioned, in the striker position, Jimenez and Chicharito haven't been getting much time. So it is really worrying that these guys, I think in the midfield we're doing all right, but it is a little worrisome in certain spots of the starting 11 that we would be using.
Yeah, I think it's not ideal, is it?
Naib?
No, I mean, what I was
Go
just
on,
gonna
Naive. No,
point out is
I was just going to say, it's not ideal.
not ideal.
Naive, go for it.
Okay. No. But what Tom says about the fact that if we were like if it was Brazil or Argentina, players like Chicharito, Raul Jimenez wouldn't play, and that's true. But right now in Mexico, the only Mexican forward that actually seems to be, prominent is Oribe Peralta. There's not that many forwards that are sprouting out in Mexico. And also, let's not forget when Guardado went to the World Cup in Brazil. There was a sense that he didn't really play at Bayer Leverkusen, and then all of a sudden he comes to the World Cup with little minutes and does a great job. And now we see Guardado at PSV and having consistent minutes. The Raúl and Chicharito, I think they haven't scored goals or anything, but I think there's no other players in Mexico that can say that can be a little above. I'd say those two.
Yeah, and it is going to be hard. Maybe I'm being like, it's just foolish thinking. Maybe they'll come out. Maybe they'll have this drive. Maybe they'll, because they've given so little minutes, they'll be more motivated to when they do actually have an opportunity to play, they will actually perform. But my assumption is it's going to be very, very hard for these players who haven't been getting regular playing time, and it's going to be very difficult for them, and they may not perform as well as we hope they will. So I think we may have already answered the question, like, are some of these call-ups justified? So we're going to jump over to Liga MX players, and I'm going to go to you, Tom. Which, considering this lineup, which Liga MX player would you say gets the deserved call-up for the next few matches?
Yeah, I think there's a few of them. I think the big one for me would be Jürgen Damm, the winger from Pachuca, because I think he's kind of maturing really well, and I think it's time now that he brought him into the national team. He's brought into the national team fold, and he can show what he can do, and Herrera can have a look at him, and I think most importantly, kind of have a look in terms of where is he going to fit into this team. Because I think a player like Damm, you want to bring that type of player because coming off the bench, he'd just be absolutely devastating with his pace against the tired defence. So I think Damm's the one I'd take, but I think Damm is going to have the same problem as Javier Aquino, which we mentioned earlier. That for me, both those players are out-and-out wingers, and in Miguel Herrera's 5-3-2. I mean, Miguel Herrera's played Aquino, kind of an attacking midfielder. He's played Tecatito in the last game against the Netherlands, and Belarus in that kind of more attacking midfield role. But it's difficult. I think it's difficult for Jürgen Damm to nail it in. But still, I definitely think he should be in there. And I think there's a few others, but I'll see what Naib and Jason are saying.
Yeah, it is definitely hard for those wingers to try to find a spot for those midfield positions, which do tend to be a little bit more centralized. So we'll see what happens. Maybe Dan will get that call up, but he has done very well this season. So Jason, now that you're alive and well, and your internet appears to be back. Maybe it was a cold. Maybe all that ridiculous weather that's going on the East Coast that's been messing with your internet. But for you, which Liga MX player deserves to get added to the roster?
I agree with Tom when Jürgen Damm especially, but I'd also go with his teammate Rodolfo Pizarro. I think he needs to be in. I think Mexico needs as many of youth in those wing-back positions to get experience. I think Pizarro could potentially be pretty quick the number one man at that right wing-back spot. So I'd like to see him in right away, getting as much playing time as possible, working toward that one of those starting spots heading toward the Gold Cup in the summer.
No, that's definitely a good point that we do actually need, like as I mentioned before we started the show, that in the right wing back position, we do actually lack a lot of depth in that spot. So it is a little worrying, and maybe bringing up a player like Pizarro would be a good idea. Naib, what are your thoughts? Which Liga MX player would you bring up to the roster?
I think I'll agree with Jürgen Damm. I think I'll put as well Dueñas from Tigres. I think he deserves a call-up because of what he's done in the other seasons, and now this one, and now his games in Libertadores help his cause as well, and the more options. Now I'm still unsure though if he's going to enter this call-up or maybe the one in April, depending on the space. And also, I would like to see Carlos Salcedo, Chivas center back in El Tri. I mean, we saw Miguel Herrera, he didn't do so well. We saw Hugo Rodriguez, he didn't do so well. Yeah, and now, Salcedo, I think, has proven in the games that he's had in Liga MX that he's capable to be in El Tri. And he's a young center back, which is important right now to have. We're still counting on bringing Rafa Marquez into the fold. You need youth, and I think Salcedo is a good example of a center back to look in the present and also in the future.
And this is kind of a tangent. I know I actually didn't ask you guys this beforehand, but now that I'm thinking about the depth of our squad, and now that I'm thinking about different positions, I'm thinking about Ochoa and goal, and I'm thinking which goalkeeper do you think he's going to call up? Because I wouldn't be too surprised if he was to call up a player other than Talavera or Moises Munoz this time around. Because if we are looking for someone who's a little bit younger, those guys aren't exactly young players in Liga MX. So do you guys think that there's a potential for a new goalkeeper to show up? Maybe it's William Yarbrough's time. Maybe somebody else. Do you think there's a potential for any other goalkeeper to be called up at this time?
Yeah, I mean, Miguel Herrera's talked about it, and he said, he's not worried about the position, but I think there has to be an element of kind of a generational shift now. I mean, obviously, I think Ochoa's a great age, and I think he's going to be a great age for the next World Cup. But after that, where do you go? I mean, Talavera's what's he now? Talavera, like 32 or something.
Yeah.
So you never know how these keepers. He could be absolutely in great form, 35, 36 in the next World Cup, but. Personally, I was really disappointed by Chivas when they dropped Daniel Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Because I thought he was playing really well. I understand Chepo, he went with experience with Luis Michel. But I don't think he's been, he's not made a massive difference. I mean, you never know because he might be kind of transmitting more confidence to the defence. But I think Daniel Rodriguez, for me, is a player that can be a Mexico #1 in the future. I'd take Yarbrough as well. I mean, I think he's a kind of he's a lot of fun. I like watching William Yarbrough. I mean, he's the type of keeper that he does make the odd mistake, but he is capable of producing absolutely brilliant saves, like he did in that final for Leon when he was the first title, when he was man of the match in the second leg. And also, Yarbrough's got his disroute the ball is unbelievable, and I think that's something that Miguel Herrera really, really likes, and I think that's why he's mentioned Yarbrough. And I think, Rodriguez, Yarbrough, just bring them, take them to the Gold Cup. All right, they're on the bench, but give them that experience. You know what I mean? To work under Ochoa or one of them. I mean, Meliton Hernandez at Veracruz, I'm not convinced by. The guy at Morelia, I think he's mentioned. I'm not convinced by either. So I don't know. I think it's going to be Jesus Corona, Talavera, Ochoa, and then I'd take a couple of the youngsters just to give him that experience, really.
Yeah, I wasn't exactly convinced by Meliton either. But speaking of Yarbrough, speaking of confidence, he blocked a penalty kick last weekend, and when I was watching the penalty kick, I mean, just the confidence beforehand, and it was weird just knowing that he was gonna block it. It was in most situations like that, you would assume that someone would score in that situation, but it was weird. His confidence was exuding. It was very, very obvious how. Comfortable he was in position. You wonder about a player like that, and also considering if perhaps Jurgen Klinsmann is looking at a goalkeeper who does have American roots. So maybe it'd be a good idea for Piojo to call him up before Jurgen could potentially bring up a player like him as well. Naive and Jason, what are your guys' thoughts on potential new goalkeeper that could be brought up? Maybe someone outside of Talavera. Maybe we'll see Chuy Corona again.
Yeah, I can't see anyone right now. It doesn't seem like there's anyone really sticking out. I mean, it looks like it's going to be his usual suspects, unfortunately. I really like Rodolfo Cota, but I don't see him making his way into the national team. And he's not much younger than some of these guys we're talking about anyway, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense there either. So, and I can't see anyone realistically fitting in that spot right now.
Yeah.
The Yarbrough bit. I think it's going to be a talk in the next weeks. I mean, I don't know how serious the U.S. men's national team is on calling him up, but I think Tom said it a couple of weeks ago. The options that are ahead of Yarbrough, perhaps right now in El Tri, are more than, let's say, in the U.S. men's national team. There's maybe a better chance for him to become a starter quicker in the U.S. men's national team, play in a World Cup. And let's say with El Tri, Ochoa could end up being the starting goalkeeper in 2018. Then you got this kid, Raul Godinho, who's in Portugal right now and could become a heck of a story in the next 3 years. If he, stays in Porto and becomes actually a player for Porto and plays first team minutes, that'll be a heck of a story for Mexico. And right away, Godinho goes up in the list, and I think Godinho will probably be ahead of Yarbrough.
Mm-hmm. Tom, did you have some thoughts on a couple of other players?
Yeah, no, it's a good point about Godinho. I think that I don't know. I think you could make the case for even taking him, but I mean, I know Herrera's been quite open and stated that you know what, I'm going to leave the under-20 team as it is because there's a World Cup this year, and I'm going to leave the under-23s team. I'm not going to dip into it because the Olympics next year. So he's going to let that process kind of develop before he kind of starts calling that age group into the full national team. But a couple of other players that I was just thinking while everyone was talking. I think Checo Rodriguez. I mean, there's a lot of talk about him. The Chiapas. I think he fits into the system really well because Chiapas play a similar, 3 centre backs and Rodriguez down the right wing. I think he's had a few disciplinary problems before, but that's not stopped players getting called up to the Mexican national team before, has it? I like him. I think he's a good player. He's tricky, he's fast, he's good at crossing, and he's a good worker. So I think he's one of, we were talking about the right wing back slot, and I think he's one that could gently apply pressure to Paul Aguilar in that spot. And then we got I don't know. There's quite a few. I mean, Dueñas from Tigres he's been around for quite a while now. Just knocking around, getting the minutes week in, week out, playing very well, don't get me wrong. And then, remember, he called up Antonio Rios from Toluca, which was a big surprise. And you look at someone like Burrito Hernandez in Pachuca, and you're like, well, has he got a chance? I mean, I quite like him. I think he's got a lot of energy. He brings a lot of energy to that midfield, and he's great alongside a kind of more of a playmaker like he has with Eric Gutierrez with Tuzos. So yeah, I think he's got plenty of players, and yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting, and I'm sure Herrera has got some surprises because Luis Venegas from Atlas. I mean, nobody really considers him to be national team quality, but Herrera's seen something. Corral as well, yeah.
Everybody immediately on Google afterwards, like, have I actually heard of this guy? I don't know. Let's look him up.
And then there's Mario Osuna as well from Querétaro, who scored against Chivas. And he might be there or thereabouts.
Yeah. Actually, now thinking about
Tom, what do you think about Enrique Perez as a possibility? I could see him coming up and getting some experience in the national, maybe ahead of. I'm thinking about that defensive depth on the national team and finding some youth. Like, do you think he has some potential, possibly?
Who's that?
Perez from Atlas.
Atlas.
Perez, yeah, I think he's okay. I think he's a good player. He's a good player. I mean, honestly, like making that step up to international level, I think there's still a question mark. But he has played quite well for Atlas, definitely. And yeah, I think what he gives you as well, and I think why Herrera called him up before the World Cup. I mean, he didn't get in the final squad, but because he's quite versatile. He can play as a right back, but he can also slot in at centre back. And I think that Herrera's really, he's really aware of that, and he needs those kind of players to fill the gap sometimes, especially if he wants to play that flat back four.
Another player that I'm thinking about right now, and I know this does.
I know what you're going to say. Can I get?
All right, go for it. Go for it.
Raul Lopez.
No.
No,
not yet. He's been doing well, and like I love how he pushes up the wings as well, and I could potentially see him as a great wing back. But actually, I'm gonna go for something like just as ridiculous. But man, Massa. I want us to be past Massa at this point.
Post Massa.
Yeah, I want us to be post Massa at this point. But I think he's still doing so well, and I think he's still such an important part of that Cruz Azul defense, which has been fantastic. Well, maybe not the last 1 or 2 or 3 games, but I think he's still doing excellent. And I think at this point, I would still have him starting next to Moreno and Rafa. At this point, I don't know what you guys think, and I know it's not. He should, Piojo should be pushing for new players and new younger players, but I think he's still in my starting 11 for the national team. Any thoughts on that?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. He definitely has a spot still. Sure. I mean, there's no clear replacement for him at this point. I don't think. I mean, he's still the guy. He's still performing. He's still playing at a high level. He's not well liked because of the teams he's been on in the past.
Yeah.
But he still has a place. I mean, he's getting it done. He proved it at the World Cup, proved it at the Club World Cup. I mean, he's still got to come up. I mean, it's important to have those veterans in the squad and working like side by side with the youth you're trying to incorporate. So I think Mazza having a place there is still important, so at least this summer.
Yeah. It's weird, isn't it, how sometimes certain players kind of get this kind of negativity attached to them, And Jason touched on it then, because he's played for Chivas and then he's played for America and then he plays for Cruz Azul, and all of a sudden he's like, Massa's just this figure of hate, and it's like, actually his career has been quite brilliant. I mean, he's played in, 2 World Cups, is it, or 3?
That's been 2. But I think some of that hate might have been stemmed too. The whole giving the middle finger at the camera last year as well. So that doesn't exactly help, does it?
No, I don't know. But he's he's a top player. He's a player who's been to Europe. He's done his thing and he's come back and he's still kept it up. So I don't know. It's just weird how sometimes players get a real buzz behind them. But I think it's especially in the Mexican context. The amount of people on Twitter today tweeting links for the Alan Pulido Leva Diacos game, and it's like, what the hell is going on here? I mean, it seems there's just this intensity about the national team, isn't there, and its players.
Yeah, that was pretty ridiculous. I actually found one link, but it kept cutting over to a tennis match, and then everything would go black. It just kept going back and forth. So I just gave up. There's this one girl from Medio Tiempo who was there, so I was just following her Twitter account, and that's where I was getting all my Alan Pulido updates. All right, so we'll move on to the Liga MX now. So we'll go over the most recent matches. So I'm going to go over to Naib. Naib, which match stood out to you from the weekend? Which match did you find the most interesting from the weekend?
I mean, I think the whole story from Leones Negros. I think in the last 2 weeks, they defeated the defending champion America at Azteca, and now they had this opportunity. Tigres coming from Argentina, and they were a little bit tired out. Tuca was acting goofy, not the typical Tuca. So I mean, there was a lot of things that were strange for Tigres. And Leones Negros took advantage of it. I think the cross into the box that Fidel Martinez got, the cross, anybody could have sent that cross because Tigres wasn't even defending. But Martinez did a good job on sending the ball to the other side of Nahuel's goal. But it's just that heart, from the Leones Negros of not giving up, even though that they seem like the team that seems the weakest at the moment. But there's this, in relegation battle, the styles don't matter, because I was looking at, there's a lot of analysts that were saying, no, but, Leones is too defensive and blah, 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 and all this. But, at the end, they won. And they beat America and they beat Tigres. And now they told Chivas and Puebla that they have to win the next game. It's a win or die game for them. So I mean, it just makes the relegation race so much more interesting than it already is. I mean, Veracruz and Puebla are in the top 4 of the Clausura, and I think Leones Negros is still in the mix, even though they're not in the top 4. But beating Tigres and America, no one saw that coming.
Yeah, it was definitely a massive victory for them, and like you mentioned too, it wasn't like this was just one single victory for them. Beforehand they'd also beaten America as well. So the team has a huge amount of momentum right now, and it puts so much more pressure on Chivas. And as I've talked about, online before, if Leones Negros, if they win their game this, I believe this might be this Saturday. I forget if it's Friday or Saturday. Friday against Morelia, and we all know how Morelia have played so far this season. Then they will surpass Puebla and Chivas. No matter what happens in the Puebla or Chivas game, Leones Negros will be able to surpass them because they have played less games. So it's really, really worrying for Chivas and Puebla. It has made the relegation race so much more interesting.
Yeah, I think like we've spoken on here. I think the last couple of weeks now, and I've said it. I think all of us said it in the last couple of weeks that Leones Negros are big favourites, or they were big favourites to go down. I mean, you couldn't see them getting a win from anywhere. Then all of a sudden they've just beat the two finalists from the last tournament from the Apertura, and it's like, and they really pulled it out of the bag. And I think it's going to be unbelievably close. But I mean, fair play to them. I really didn't think they had it in them to do that, because obviously you look forward and you're like, right, next game, who've you got? Tigres. Well, it's going to be, America in the Azteca, forget it. The week after Tigres, very difficult, even if they're coming back from Argentina. So yeah, it's I don't know. I think it's way more exciting than the top of the table, to be honest, at the minute. I mean, it's just I wish there was a bit more that everybody could understand, like how it works every week. But yeah, like Cesar said, I mean, Leones Negros win on Friday, then they're above. They go above Chivas and Puebla. I mean, and those two playing on Saturday. So I don't know. It's fascinating, really.
Well, speaking of the top of the table, some of those teams, that are in the relegation battle, like Veracruz and Chivas, they're near the top of the table, and it shows, the push that they've had so far this season it's just, I think that is the more interesting story at this point, is the relegation battle, and it's gonna continue with the results that have been happening recently. It's only gonna be continue to become more interesting as the season continues to unfold.
Yeah, I think we should also. I think everybody's talking about Chivas, and naturally, because of the size of the club, I think that in the last couple of weeks, everybody started to talk about Leones Negros because they picked up a few points. But I think Puebla have been a bit hard done by in terms of getting praise. I mean, you look at it, it's 3 wins out of the last 4 games. They're pretty unlucky against Chiapas on Saturday night in terms of they had that 2-1 lead, and then Jaguares equalised very, very late on. I mean, what a performance from Cruz's side, really. I mean, it has been unbelievable. I mean, nobody expected this from Puebla. And what are they in now, 3rd place or 4th place, isn't it? I mean, that's been one of the stories of the season, and nobody expected it from them. But then again, they got Luis Gabriel Rey, Hercules Gomez, Alustiza, and who else did they buy in? I think those 3, if I'm not mistaken, I might be mistaken, but I think they've all won goal-scoring titles. You know what I mean? So I think they've just kind of gone with experience and got 3, players that are proven in the Mexican League, and all of a sudden they started to score some goals.
Yeah. And Alustiza, Matias Alustiza has had a fantastic season with them, and they do definitely deserve a huge amount of praise for what they've done. Jason, let's get to you. What for you was the most interesting match of the weekend?
It was that match that Tom just talked about, that Chiapas-Puebla match. I mean, Puebla takes the lead in the second half, and they really they were the better team for that game, in a very tough place to play, playing down in Chiapas, a real tough situation. And they come in, they take the lead, they hold on to it. It looks like they're cruising, going to get the 3 points and really make up some serious ground. And then Chiapas scores. Chiapas scores 3 goals in 3 minutes, just absolute bedlam in Chiapas. That game was just crazy. So just super entertaining stuff, and just so high stakes what we see from Leones Negros right now. So definitely the highlight of the weekend for me.
Yeah. I think you said it right. It was 3 goals in 5 minutes. It was ridiculous, and luckily for Chiapas, I think they still have their undefeated home record. I think it still stretches back until last March, something ridiculous like that, where they have yet to lose a home game. I forgot who I asked from the first game. The first game I asked was I must ask Naive. So it's right. It's you now, right, Tom? Yeah, I remember forgetting these things. What was that? I should have been having that beer. That's what I blame it on. All right, Tom, what was your game of the weekend?
I'm gonna go with the Chivas game, just because of how massive it was. I mean, honestly, I thought Chivas, they came off the back of defeating Monterrey 3-0 and like one of the best performances for a long time. And fair play to Jason there. I remember him saying last week, Chivas fans, hold back, don't get too excited. There's a long way to go here. He doesn't want to win.
That's right.
And then I thought first half Chivas were really good. I thought they played very, very well. I thought they brought all the confidence from 2 consecutive victories into that first half against Querétaro, and all of a sudden, for some reason, Chepo at the end, he decided that a point's a good result.
Yeah,
And,
I think that was the biggest issue right there. Is you could kind of sense that at the very end, and they were just feeling complacent with the 0-0 tie.
And then Osuna, obviously scores that unbelievable goal, and at the end of the day, they're very fine margins because Chivas were couple of minutes away from getting a decent point, and at the end of the day, Chivas probably didn't quite deserve the 3 points, but they definitely deserved a point. But I mean, with the relegation battle the way it is now, and with Puebla, picking up points, and Leones Negros doing unbelievable things, it's like Chivas, the pressure just won't go away. I mean, if Chivas, what is it, 14 points now from 9 games, I think. Yeah. I mean, that's good. I mean, they're in 6th place. They're in the playoffs, but it's like they're still potentially one bad game away this weekend from being in last position in the league. I mean, this relegation race isn't going anywhere, and as much as hard as they are trying, and as pretty well as they are doing, to be honest, it's just not going anywhere. I think the other thing, just to quickly mention about that game, was Ronaldinho. I thought, pulled off after 67 minutes again. I mean, I think I wrote in the story, I said, like, if you were watching Ronaldinho and you didn't recognize his like long hair and his headband and who Ronaldinho is, and you were just watching that game, and you'd be like, he's no good. He's not a very good player. He doesn't run much. He doesn't contribute to the team. And if he'd have just been plucked out from the Brazilian league to play for Querétaro, like so many players, come to Mexico each transfer window, then you'd be like, who are these scouts? I mean, really? I mean, what the scouts? What are they doing? That's a terrible signing. Maybe terrible's too harsh, but that isn't somebody who's going to help your team out. And I think that's the most damning thing you can say about Ronaldinho right now. He just doesn't look like he's up to speed at all.
I don't know if he's exactly a terrible player, but considering who he used to be and what Querétaro expected of him, it's been a complete failure. I think he actually had a couple of decent passes during the game, but as I just mentioned, like, you expect so much more from Ronaldinho, and it's entirely like underwhelming the way that he plays in the league, and I think it has been a failure overall. Ronaldinho's decision to join the league, and I think with Chivas. I think they were a little unlucky. All that was missing from the first half was a goal. And I think they were a little once more again a little unlucky. I think Denigris, he had to come off during, I believe it was like the 20th or 21st minute, and Omar Bravo came on and he did nothing. He did nothing up top for Chivas. So that was obviously uneventful for Chivas. But like you said, Tom, it was just Chepo realized during the last probably like 20-25 minutes, they could gain a tie, and then they, Osuna scored, a golazo during the dying moments of the game.
Yeah, but I mean, these are the fine lines. I mean, Denigris all of a sudden plays really well for 2 weeks, scores 2 absolutely vital goals against Jason's Cruz Azul and Monterrey. 2 really good goals, and he looked like he was going to be that player to kind of glue that forward line of Chivas together for a change. And then he gets injured, but these are the fine lines when it comes to the relegation. I mean, you need everything going for you, and Chivas, just as it looked like it was going well, and now it's a step backwards again. And I don't know. I think just this game on Saturday now against Puebla is absolutely massive. I mean, if Chivas lose that game, I mean the pressure is already there, But you can just imagine, from being down in Mexico, that it's just going to be absolutely intense, because they probably would be favourites then to go down for the first time.
Yeah.
Or it'd be close, but I think for the first time they'd be bottom of the league if Leones Negros win, and you'd have to say at this point, well, there's only like 9 games left now, isn't there? Or there'd be 8 games left and Chivas in bottom place. And with the way, I think they'd probably be favourites just about.
Yeah, and as I mentioned too, there's just even if they do win, if Leones Negros win, then they can, then it really wouldn't benefit them that much. So this game between Puebla and Chivas could potentially be the difference maker between for the team that's going to be relegated at the end of the season. So it's going to be it's extremely important that Chivas win this game if they still want to be relevant in the Liga MX anymore. So I think those were the 3 games that were highlights for us. I'll go over quickly through a few of the other scores. So Veracruz beat León 1-0. León, there was 3 red cards in that game, which was weird to see, especially from Carlos Peña and Gallito. Those were I don't know why, but I was a little surprised to be seeing some of those fouls that those guys had late in the match, and I know they were a little frustrated, but it was a little disappointing to see that from those players from León. Then there was a Monterrey 3, and they beat Toluca. Monterrey 3, Toluca 2. Edwin Cardona, I think he was a standout player of the weekend, and I know he mentioned
top player.
Yeah, and I know he's mentioned he's been a little frustrated with the minutes that he's had in the season, and after seeing those, well, it's technically 2 goals, but I'm going to say 3 just because that he had a part in that second one, and it shows like how talented that guy is. Actually, did any of you guys see the Monterrey Toluca match? It was just ridiculous to see. Jason, what were your thoughts on Cardona, or maybe some of the goals that he had, or how Monterrey did during that match?
Well, I mean, for me, it was mostly like the red card. I mean, Toluca had the early red card, and it really just put the just gas pedal all the way down and just took control of that match completely. I mean, Toluca were playing really well at the start of that, and just a ridiculous red card. Deserve it. Ridiculous. But I mean, they look well going forward. But again, it's that it's 11v10. It's hard to say exactly what that means going forward. But Cardona definitely impressive. The goals he was scoring and just his movement off the ball as well, also impressive. But hard to say what that means for the team in general.
Yeah, and then actually, I saw that I skipped a match. I saw that Tom kind of reminded me there. Jason, any thoughts about Cruz Azul? They've been slacking a little bit. What's going on with La Máquina, man?
I mean, it's the same team that we saw at the beginning of the season. I mean, it was a bit of smoke and mirrors at the beginning. That record that they had, just kind of getting the lucky goal and keeping the goals out. I mean, they're just stagnant. They're a stagnant squad, really just kind of stationary in midfield and really can't score. So they have to keep a clean sheet and hope they can keep the goals out, because they're not going to score many goals with the roster they're putting out right there. They're just not. They're old. They're just old and not very talented in the midfield at the moment. So it's kind of it's ugly and kind of depressing.
I mean, it must have been worse too. I didn't get a chance to watch the game, but it must have been worse. Because Cruz has been waiting for weeks for Roque Santa Cruz to return. He does, and then nothing happens. Maybe it's asking for too much of him when he's just started to come back and he's feeling well. But it must be a little worrisome though when you have the star signing and he didn't do anything that match. Like I guess I'm saying didn't do anything. Wasn't able to watch that game, so I don't know if he didn't actually do anything. But
you could really fill that forward position out with whatever forward great in the world you want at this point. And they're not going to score very often for Cruz Azul because what's behind them is not getting much done. I mean, behind them you have Javi Baez and Gerardo Torrado, like really just not doing anything. So they're sitting so deep that no one is getting forward, and you have Alejandro Vela started the game and actually scored the goal. But I mean, there's no quality going forward to really supply any chances, and it's just really defensive. So they're just not a very good team right now. They're going to be a middling kind of. They tried to make the other team play ugly, and they're going to play ugly. And they made Atlas play ugly for a good chunk of that match on Saturday. But Atlas eventually won out. They were more fit. They took control in the second half. They had better legs. Cruz Azul were tired and old, and they took over, and rightly so.
The surprising thing about that, though, I mean, I agree with Jason. I mean, Cruz Azul just lagged, and the same thing happened. What was it? 2 weeks before against Chivas, when Chivas came back from 1-0 down and won 2-1, and Atlas, they got the 1-1 draw, came back. It was almost the same thing. I mean, I was expecting Atlas to get the win, the way the game was going at the end. I mean, Atlas was just throwing, and they'd come back from Chile in midweek, playing the Libertadores. And that's what I couldn't believe. I was waiting for Atlas more than Cruz Azul to kind of can they hold on here? How long are they going to last before they really start getting tired? And I just thought it was unbelievable. And I think it raised the question, Jason mentioned the age of the players, but is there a fitness issue there as well? With Cruz Azul.
No, that's definitely a good point, and maybe it has shown. Maybe that they were a little bit lucky. Maybe they had some energy at the beginning of the season, but the past 3 matches, it is definitely worrying for Cruz Azul fans to see them. I think it's 3 games in a row that they haven't won. Correct? I'm pretty sure that's what it is. That they haven't won 3 games in a row. So it's definitely worrying for Cruz Azul, who were doing so well, and they had I forget how many games it was that no one had scored on them. So it's definitely worrying signs, and I'm sorry for that, Jason. Best of luck, man.
It's okay. I didn't have high hopes, so that's fine.
All right, so let's go over to Santos 1, Xolos 1. That was definitely very, very dramatic, and all you really need to know about that match was the last 5 minutes. I was saying Gabriel, but Auche, he had the equalizer in the last few minutes, and then it looked like, I think it was Pulpo from Santos. The dying, I think it was the last minute of injury time. He had a header on net, and it looked like Cirilo Salcedo had blocked it, but it almost looked like it went in. And who knows whether it went in or not? Maybe we would have a little bit better technology in order to tell whether that went in for Santos. But it was definitely a good reaction from Cirilo Salcedo, and it was extremely dramatic finish over there for Xolos. And they still only have 1 loss so far this season, so that's definitely a good thing for Xolos. So, and I think I was thinking about it, just the drive and determination that they had at the end of that match. I think sometimes that's what could set a team apart from say for example Chivas, who when it was 0-0 they decided to stop. They kind of lagged a little bit, but but a team like Tijuana, maybe that's what made them so good this season, is that they did pressure, they did end up getting that late equalizer, and it was just interesting to see that on Saturday night.
Just quick on
Xolos,
Cesar.
Tijuana as a club needed it.
What was that?
Go on, Naib. You go.
No, just quick on Xolos. I mean, I remember just last season, Xolos wouldn't win away from home, and now or even get ties, and now it's getting the ties, it's getting the wins. It's an interesting team. It's the best offense in Liga MX. Auche has been, I think, the top signing of the league so far. Even if Marchesín is doing good stops and Pulpo is scoring goals for Santos. And about the Mexican forwards, in Santos you have Chuletita Orozco getting all these minutes and he can score. That's a problem with Santos. The forwards can't score. Giannini and Chuletita, all the goals are scored by Pulpo Gonzalez. That's their main problem. And then also there seems to be something with Mexican forwards, because just when De Nigris was starting to pick up his game, he gets the injury. And Lalo Herrera and Pumas, I think he did a pretty good game this week. Just a side note there with the forwards, but Xolos, an amazing season they're having.
Yeah, definitely. Tom, it sound like you were saying something beforehand?
Yeah, just they needed it, Xolos, as well. I mean, they're a club that still is such a young club, and just the way the club works, they were absolutely. I actually was at the hotel when they went out of the playoffs. It must have been against Atlas, and I think they drew. I can't remember, but I remember seeing the what's he called, Palau, Nacho Palau, and in the hotel, and I'd interviewed him before, so I said hello, and he was just absolutely distraught. I mean, the kind of goal of Xolos is that every time they're in the playoffs. And I think there was a lot of pressure coming into the season on the club because they've had a couple of not the best seasons. So yeah, I think they needed it as a club, as an institution, and in the cup as well, not just the league. I mean, Cholos are doing big things in the cup, and it's I think it's tomorrow night or Wednesday night. It's they're playing Chiapas in the quarterfinals. So I mean, good things at Cholos, and it's good to see like fans there as well. You know what I mean? It's good to see the people getting behind the team there.
Yeah, I definitely, speaking of fans, I do actually really enjoy watching, Xolos play, and you could definitely hear, even even though it's not the biggest stadium in Mexico, you could definitely feel the atmosphere. At least for me, when I'm watching it on TV, like even for me, like all the way up here, like Northern California, I feel like I kind of like feel like the excitement of all the fans and the the massacre, playing like Blondie cover songs.
Yeah, and then they got the like rap song as well, like the club's official rap tune.
Yeah.
You heard that?
I have
Perros. Somos más perros. I think it's Somos más perros.
Well, eventually you're gonna have to post that, man.
Yeah,
all right.
I didn't know.
Well, actually, Tom, just if you know the lyrics, just rap to them right now. It'd be fascinating to hear. All right, so.
Somos más perros, cartel de Santa.
All right, so then we have one more match. It was Pumas 2, Morelia 1. Nothing too extravagant about that match. It was a small victory, in the end, but it was a massive victory for Pumas, who have been really, really struggling this season. So that match couldn't have come at a better time for them right now, because they've had a hard time, just scoring. It's been pretty abysmal. How Pumas have played so far this season. So like I said, yeah, it was definitely lucky that they had Morelia to take on at that moment. So other than that, I think we've covered the Liga MX. Anything else? Any last thoughts about the Liga MX before we start covering? And I was gonna bring up Alan Pulido, but we'll wait until we're done with the Liga MX. Anything from you guys?
It's going to be interesting to see Veracruz going into Tijuana this weekend. I'm looking forward to that one. Two sides that just can't seem to be stopped at the moment. It'll be interesting to see if Veracruz can continue this run going into one of the hardest environments to play against the league's best team right now. I find it hard to doubt them at this point. They just, I don't know. Every time I think they're going to lose, they don't. So really excited for that one on Friday.
Yeah. Well, they definitely.
I was just going to say, just quickly, it's like, before they played Chivas, I also doubted them. I was like, yeah, it's just a few games. But then when you watch them live, I don't know, they just kind of made sense. They just kind of clicked. I mean, they've got Meneses in midfield, I think he's called, like a really big guy, and he really pins it all together. And, I think Jimenez at the back as well, the centre-back season. And then... Julio what's he called? Furch.
Julio Furch.
He's
massive.
Really, people are talking about him. Yes. I mean, all down the middle, you've got like kind of a really good spine of a team. And yeah, like I said, you watch them live and they do make sense. Like Jason said, exactly. It's difficult to doubt them right now.
No, definitely. And I wrote about this. I think it was yesterday. I think something we forgot about too is that last season, as terrible as they were, they did extremely well defensively, and I think Thomas brought this up before. When you'd see them play, it wouldn't it be too atypical for them to have like a 0-0 match, 0-0, 1-1 match, and it was always low-scoring affair. So by adding in Julio Furch, who's been massive, he scored 6 goals, so far this season, and he's one of the top goals. I mean, I think he's actually tied. I forget with who he's actually tied with right now in the league for top goal scorer in Liga MX. But by incorporating him into the team and by incorporating Carlos Reynoso, Veracruz has really surprised so many people, and I think they're gonna do well in the playoffs. Actually, I don't think they're gonna win it all, but I wouldn't be too surprised if they were to make it into the semifinals, just because how they've been able to scrape by with those with their like defensive efforts that they've had so far this season, and with their ability of like scoring 3 goals in one game thanks to Julio Furch and the rest of the attack. But Dave, any other Liga MX thoughts?
Nah, I think we covered them all. I mean, it would be interesting to see with America and Matosas. They're a little bit in a little bit struggle right now. The scoring is low considering the forwards that they have, and it will be interesting to see how the team reacts. Because the Clásico is coming up, and that's gonna be a great game to see.
No, definitely agree. Okay, so no, we're actually running low on time. Should have done a better job about this, but all right. So let's go over to what I thought was some of the bigger news of the day was Alan Pulido scoring. He's now allowed to play with Levadiakos, and on his debut game, he scored and he also got man of the match. How? It just seems like it's almost like a Disney movie right there somehow. This player who wasn't allowed to, he like went out to Europe and he wasn't allowed to play, blah blah, and then he ends up scoring on his debut. What are your guys' thoughts on Alan Pulido and his future after considering that goal? I'll see what Jason has to say.
Well, I mean, like prior to all this controversy, when he was just the Tigres player, like this is someone we were penciling in with L3 to be one of the next guys right there with Raul. So I mean, like he's on this hiatus now, and he was almost like he died, and now he's come back to life again, and like there's plenty of reason to think that he's going to move right back into one of those Mexico spots because he's still so ridiculously talented. He's out of the limelight a bit now. Obviously not if we're pulling out all these weird streams to find him, but like, I don't know. It's not unreasonable to think he finds his way back into great form and that he's brought right back into the Mexico's fold again.
Yeah, no, it's and I guess maybe because we didn't see him for so long that we forgot about how good of a player he is. What if he breaks some sort of like record over in Greece? What if he starts scoring like 15 goals a game? Maybe that'll justify a call-up. But we'll definitely see. Naive or Tom, any thoughts on Alan Pulido and his debut today for Levadiakos?
Tom, you go first.
All right, I was just going to say, I think he's going to score a lot of goals in that league. I found a decent link to the game, and I think he's going to score a lot of goals in that league, put it that way, once he gets into rhythm.
It wasn't a tennis match that was cut to every now and then, like my stream. That's nice.
And what else? Yeah, it's just good to see him back playing. I mean, been really sad, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Naive?
Yeah, I mean, the main question I think is how long will this Disney movie will continue, because there still is a permission, and I don't know when the permission will end or whatsoever. The thing is that this guy wanted this to happen since last year. He wanted to go to Europe, he wanted to play there, and probably it's not the setting that he dreamed of, but he's actually fulfilling a dream of his, and he's scoring goals. I mean, and the thing is, there's not that many. I think there's been this common theme here in the show that the Mexican forwards right now, I don't see that many, and that's why you still see the Chicharitos and Raúl Jiménez getting call-ups, because where are you going to pick from? And Alan Pulido was bound to be one of those forwards, but he went through all this adventure of being in Monaco, being in Italy, trying to find a team, and now he's in Levadiakos, a team that is mid-table in Greece. But it's a good start for him. It's a good start, but we'll see what. It's just the beginning of a Disney movie that could have a happy ending, or it could have a really bad ending.
Yeah. Or it could be like, what is it? I was thinking, some of those Pixar movies have like semi sad dark endings. Maybe it could be like a Pixar movie. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see how it does in Greece. So let's go over really quickly to the Copa Libertadores. So we have two teams left from Mexico in the Copa Libertadores. We have Atlas and we have Tigres. Atlas are struggling a little bit. They have just 3 points in the group stage right now. But Tigres are the one that are leading their group. They have 4 points. And I'm going to go over to Tom. Tom, how was quickly? Have you been following Atlas and their recent participation in the Copa Libertadores? Have you been hearing anything interesting about their next potential match on April 7th against Colo-Colo?
I mean, Atlas were a better team than Colo-Colo for most of that game. But with the last 30 minutes, they really ran out of steam. I mean, from the travelling and stuff like that. I mean, Thomas Boy left 8 players down there in South America for a week, but it didn't work. I mean, nobody really expected to win in the Copa Libertadores away. I mean, the way Atlas's fixtures worked out, these next 2 games now, Colo-Colo in the Estadio Jalisco, followed a week later by Atlético Mineiro in the Estadio Jalisco. You just have to win. I mean, it's down to that. If they win those 2 games, they've got a good chance of getting through. And if they don't, then they're out. Simple as that. And what I like about Atlas is they're taking it very seriously. And I've been quite surprised with Tigres, the teams that they put out. Tuca Ferretti doesn't normally like continental competitions. This time he's gone out and he's put very, very strong teams out. And I thought that was a brilliant, brilliant performance by Tigres down in River Plate, one of the most difficult places to go on the whole American continent. Unbelievable difficult place. And he played kind of 3 defense with Pizarro in kind of the libero role and didn't really attack much, but Garron was unbelievable. Every time he got the ball forward, he was just absolutely battling away, posed a real problem, and yeah, all of a sudden, Tigres now are really strong favourites to go through that group. I think they're playing in La Paz. Is it against? Is it
San Jose this Wednesday? Yeah.
Yeah, they're playing San Jose on midweek, and then I doubt they're going to get a result. But the thing is, you take the team back to the Estadio Universitario in Monterrey, and that's a difficult place as well. So I think Tigre is very good. Atlas depend on the next 2 games.
Yeah, and it definitely was pretty impressive to see some of those results that they've had in South America recently. Jason, any thoughts on the Copa Libertadores or Atlas or Tigres?
Yeah, just to echo some of the sentiments that Tom had there. Yeah, Atlas looked so good in that match, and tough result for them because they were the better team for the majority of that match. So tough result, but like Tom said, it's good to see both of the teams really playing so well on the road right now. And both of them still have a chance. Atlas less so, but a chance going forward. So they're putting a good show forward. So hopefully they can advance this time.
Yeah. Naive, any thoughts on the Copa Libertadores and the Liga MX teams that are down there?
No, I mean, I think it's always welcoming, to see teams actually taking serious the tournament, and there was a lot of doubts with Tuca, about is he gonna actually put the best starting 11 possible, and he is, and I think that's a positive thing to take out of the tournament. I mean, Tigres has one of the best budgets in Liga MX. There's no and also Atlas, ones that now that they have Azteca owns, that there are 2 teams that are powerful. They got the players, and let's see if they can go at least match Cholo's run, that the last one, with Turco Mohamed.
Well, I'm just a little bummed out that Mexico Giants Morelia got knocked out in the first round.
It's a real shocker.
Real shocker.
Tell you what. With Atlas.
Yeah.
All right. I don't think they're going to have a great season this time because I think the 2 tournaments. But I think if Atlas can hold on to the majority of that squad and in the summer get a player like Fidel Martinez on the wing, and I know this is a long shot, but Pabon from Monterrey or a player of that standard as a number 9, and Atlas will be absolutely challenging next season. They need 2 players, really good winger and a striker who can properly finish off chances, and I think they'll be up there in top 3 teams of the league.
Yeah. Well, I think any team that brings in Pavon and Fidel Martinez might be doing all right, Tom.
Can we interest you in an Alamau? Can we send him over maybe?
He'll be another Kennel. That was the same as Kennel, man. Don't know how did they get here? No idea how they got here.
All right, quickly going over to the CONCACAF Champions League. A little bit of a disappointing result for Pachuca, wouldn't you guys say? Yeah, that wasn't exactly expected. It's weird with the CONCACAF Champions League, just because I find myself just rooting for I find myself rooting for America and Pachuca. Like I don't care about them. I've never cared about America or Pachuca, but suddenly they're taking on MLS teams, and I'm just like I've suddenly become diehard fan. It's really weird, but it was a little. I don't know how you guys feel, as Liga MX fans or maybe I'm assuming you guys are Liga MX fans. Maybe you're not,
Well,
but
I just think that Pachuca, complete lack of experience, and now closing out that game, I thought they did quite well, and they had the result in the bag, and then they just messed up. It was Irving Lozano who, instead of kind of just keeping the ball, he decided to go for goal and cross it in. I mean, these are little things that usually you associate more with, let's say, MLS teams, that they're usually a bit more naive, and it's the Mexican teams that are more, strong, and the gimmicks and the acting and the time wasting. You know what I mean? I think that's pretty fair to say. And I thought that against Montreal that it was the other way around. I thought Montreal were pretty dirty, but that's not a criticism. That's not a criticism. They did what they had to do against a young Pachuca team, and I thought that. And the other thing is, I know it's a big thing for MLS, and it is, but they drew 2 games. I mean, let's not go crazy about it. They drew twice. I mean, it was an away goals victory, so it's not like the end of the world or a big point that one league's moving this way or that. It's 2 draws. I mean, and the leagues aren't that different anyway, so.
That's my biggest thing when I'm watching these CONCACAF Champions League matches, is just I can't tolerate the entire referendum on the strength of the MLS and the referendum on how Liga MX compares with MLS. Like, it's just so irrelevant and cannot be measured by 2 matches from 2 plucked teams from the 2 leagues. It's just so ridiculous. But I mean, that being said, it was clear that Pachuca was the better team. They played. Tom referenced the more naive game as well. They played like an inexperienced bunch, and Montreal got the job done. They put in the work and got past them. It doesn't say anything about the MLS or the Liga MX, but every result seems to have that reaction, which is just highly frustrating to try to deal with on Twitter. You just got to sign off during those matches sometimes, I think.
It's frustrating, but so many people see that as a scale to see how well the Liga MX is doing or how well the MLS is doing. And I assume everybody knows that isn't a true scale of which team is better. But that's the main argument people will sometimes use online, and it's frustrating. So you want to see the Liga MX teams do well, and when they don't, it sucks. Even though I support an MLS team, and I was born here in the U.S., but it's hard. It's hard sometimes. Well, we can have a ridiculous discussion about this later.
The other thing is, I mean, what is it? Since when was the kind of latest version of the CONCACAF Champions League? When did it start? I think it was 2008.
6 years? I don't know. It's been something like that. I'm not entirely sure.
Let me just, where is it now? Yeah, so what's it been since 2008, and there's been since that time 12 finalists, and 11 of the 12 finalists has been from Mexico.
Yeah.
There's only been 1 team, Real Salt Lake, who have ever made the final. So I mean, I know what Jason and Cesar you're both saying, and it is, I do understand, but at the same time, you can see from kind of an MLS point of view how they're just so desperate to break this kind of Mexican dominance of the competition, and it has been absolute dominance. I mean, you imagine the UEFA Champions League if it was the Spanish teams were, for the last 6 years, there'd only been 1 finalist from another country. I mean, you'd be like, well, Spain's just by far superior. So I don't know, but at the same time, I don't think it says that Mexico is vastly superior. I just think it says Mexico, they have got that advantage that MLS haven't started the league, and I think the wages is the thing that differentiates. I think that Mexico have a better depth of squad, and therefore they're able to win more games. Simple as that.
And just quick to close it out with Montreal and Pachuca, I think the planning that Montreal did was exceptional. Training in Mexico for 2 weeks or so, and also Diego Alonso lacked a little bit of knowledge of the zone, of the CONCACAF zone. I think letting Montreal score 2 goals in Estadio Hidalgo was something that shouldn't have happened in the first place. And I think that already put Pachuca in a position that was a little bit uncomfortable. For Montreal to do that in Mexico, take advantage of a lack of preparation, I'd say, from Pachuca, was interesting, I say, in that series. But like you said, Tom, I mean, both were ties. But for the MLS, it's a bold move for them, for the league.
Yeah. Well, now I'm going to having some weird cognitive dissonance, just like somewhat rooting for America. That's gonna be weird. I don't know. All right, so
It's a tough one.
yeah, so it's 6 minutes past the hour. Hopefully, you guys can just stick by for just like a few more minutes, but just really quickly go over some of the other Europeos. So let's talk quickly, and I'll go over to Naive for this. Giovanni Dos Santos scoring against Celta Vigo, and it was a beautiful goal. He like took it from like the halfway point of the field. How important is that, for Giovanni to be scoring in La Liga again?
It's an important goal. I mean, I think the first one of the season. The fans in Villarreal were getting a little bit desperate. They wanted to see Giovanni score a goal in La Liga. It's important to point out that he scored goals in Europa League, which is equally as important. And as well, the momentum, that Villarreal goes. They played against Barcelona in the Copa del Rey. They couldn't eliminate them. It was kind of complicated. And now they're going against Sevilla on Thursday. I don't know if Giovanni's going to start. I think Marcelino's still going to go with Uche and Vieto, and Jonathan Dos Santos will likely start in the midfield. But it's interesting, that series between Sevilla and Villarreal, because Marcelino Toral, the Villarreal coach, was Sevilla's coach in 2011 and 2012. There was a point that Giovanni could have played for Sevilla, and there was also another point in which Jonathan could have played for Sevilla. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, every time Giovanni or Jonathan touch the ball in Sanchez Pizjuan, they actually get booed, because there's a sense among the Sevilla fans that Giovanni and Jonathan never wanted to play for Sevilla. Yeah. But the case was that Sevilla didn't have that much cash to get their transfers in the first place. So it's interesting. The goal is important for his confidence. And we'll see how it goes. But we have to demand more from a player like Giovanni, because Giovanni is really, really talented. And there's no reason to, I just don't see it. There's no explanation for him to only have one goal in La Liga. He should have more than one goal.
Yeah, and I was actually a little surprised by that as well, just because I know there was a lack of goals for him this season, but he did have the occasional goal, but I just completely forgot that none of those were actually in the league. They were in the other competition. So it's nice to finally hear that he is, finally have an impact, and hopefully he'll continue having an impact, and now that he hasn't been injured, because he had those multiple injuries that he's had so far this season. So just fingers crossed that he doesn't get injured anymore, that he's confident, and then let's start hoping for more goals. And really quickly, one more Mexican abroad who scored a goal was Andres Guardado, who scored against, once again, and I've talked about this before, it's my favorite team name from Europe, Go Ahead Eagles. Yeah, so one of the goals against Go Ahead Eagles. It wasn't a beautiful goal. The ball was bouncing back and forth, in the 18-yard box, and he kind of like leapt up, and kind of like he was maybe 2 yards away from the goal, and kind of like tapped it into the net. But it kind of highlights how well that Guardado has done abroad in the Eredivisie. And I'll go back to you again, Naive. Naive, how important was that for Guardado to have that goal for PSV Eindhoven?
He's a fan favorite. He's a fan favorite. He's learned a lot from Philippe Cocu, his coach over there in PSV, and that's important. I mean, Cocu's played for Barcelona for the Dutch national team. It's a good teacher to have. And I think, Guardado's played a lot in the central defensive midfield position, and that, gives options to Piojo, if he wants to play around with his lineup. That fact that Guardado has had important minutes in the central defensive midfield position opens up possibility for other players to play on that left midfield position. The leadership, ever since he became captain of El Tri, I've seen a more mature Guardado, a guy that wants to eat the world, basically. And that's good for Mexico to have a leader like Guardado. And then just quick I want to point out something about Raúl Jiménez. Yeah. He's had some little minutes, but he has more speed. He's improved his passing, and although there's a lot of good comments coming from Atletico about his persona, always listening, always trying to learn something new, and that's as much as he can do, because a starting role in Atletico right now, it's almost impossible. But
Yeah.
to hear that from inside the team should be something positive to take out of his season.
I guess so, but maybe we're just trying to find some silver linings on him just sitting on the bench, and just like, well, at least he's training with some of the best players in Europe. So I guess that's it. We went a little bit late. It's an hour and 10 minutes. Was going to ask a quick question from the Colorful Kid. Asked, how can we afford to have Don Tom's massive appearance fee, on the show now? But I guess he'll be asking that. Maybe he'll give us a contract later for his list of demands for continuing to show up on the Mexican soccer show. So before we head out, before we call it a night, any last things, any last words, last thoughts, Liga MX, Europeos, I don't know, recipes, or beer recommendations, I don't care. Any last words for you guys?
I went to a place you would have loved, Cesar, the other day, a beer thing.
Really?
I had a homemade brewery in the back.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah, you'll have to, next time you're down, you'll have to go there. Jason like it as well, he's got that old app, hasn't he? What's it called? What's it called?
Untapped.
Untapped, yeah.
Is that a
yes, if anyone drinks a lot of beer, then add these two boys on Untapped.
Yeah. I think I'm at, actually, I'm gonna look it up right now. I'm gonna tell everybody Untapped. That's actually, I believe I'm at Cesar H 1030. If anybody wants to follow my alcoholism and my it's like Facebook for beer. Naive, any last thoughts?
Hector Herrera's game tomorrow in Champions League. I mean,
Yes.
the situation with Porto will be interesting. They won't be having Jackson Martinez for quite a while. I'd say 4 weeks or so. Porto without Jackson Martinez is a different story. I think we'll see how that could affect the team. But Oliver Torres will be back in Porto, and Oliver Torres and Hector Herrera are like a great midfield with Casemiro right there. But hopefully we can see Herrera go to the quarterfinals in the Champions League tomorrow.
Yeah, and quickly, kind of on the same kind of tangent. Also, Real Madrid is going to be playing tomorrow. Highly doubt we're going to see any minutes for Chicharito, but you never know. Maybe the beard is actually going to work this time around. All right, Jason, any last thoughts?
No, just good times, and thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Well, thanks to you as well, Jason. All right. Well, thanks, guys. It's been fun. We had a good chat. Join us again next week. Sorry we didn't have a Mexico Top 25 chat, but hopefully maybe next month we'll be able to find some time to discuss the list. If you haven't seen the list yet, it's up on Footmex Source, and it's for the Mexico Top 25 list. But other than that, I think we're good. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks to everybody on the chat. Sorry, actually, I didn't have any chance to talk to anybody on the chat today, but yeah, it's been fun. Have a good night, guys.
Good night.